back to Cutie Chat Podcast. This is Mary,
And this is Daryl.
and this is your one stop shop for all things quarantine related. We talk about current events, we talk about politics, what's trending, interesting television that we're watching, all the different things that we've gotten into, how the pandemic has affected so many different facets of life, and we also try to inspire, motivate, and encourage, and everything else in between. Welcome back to this episode. Dun, 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 dun. Today we talk about the Lovecraft season finale. But I will say, there will be no spoilers here. We will try to keep this very general. We'll see if that works. But we have some interesting things we'd like to share with you guys. So let's just jump right into it. So Daryl will go first, I'll go next, and we'll just keep that order as we kind of go through the various topics in this episode. So the first topic, Daryl, your initial reaction to the end of the episode.
Okay, so my initial reaction was I was disappointed. I was disappointed that it was over, and honestly, like I was looking for like a big old magical fight. I don't know, but then like in retrospect, um, I was like able to think about the whole episode like holistically and in relation to the story. And my disappointment went down. I mean, we've talked about the show before and we're both fans, and I'll just say that the last episode was by no means disappointing or bad, but it was just sort of it made you look forward or want more. And that's not a horrible thing. So I'm definitely looking forward to season 2.
All right. I probably can echo pretty much a lot of what you said. I think I'll say that it felt like the episode moved very slow, the whole episode. And then the last 10 or 15 minutes, like everything kind of came together in terms of, as you say, kind of like tying the story up for that particular season. But I was disappointed as well. I was disappointed because I felt like some of the dynamics in the story that made me interested in it to begin with, that compelled me to keep watching it, I felt like those mechanics just did not exist in the end. And without giving it away, I think you know what I'm talking about. I think that oftentimes the way the black stories are written and told, you can always expect a certain outcome. And I think the thing that drew me to the story was that it was always a shock and a surprise, and it always left you wanting more, and it always gave you hope and left you feeling like, oh wow, this is not what I thought it was. And I feel like the last episode failed me in that way, in that while there are so many unanswered questions that we can now look forward to being answered, I guess I was just disappointed in that it fell into a trope of or a mechanism that we often see in black TV and cinema. So, but everything else you said, pretty much, I agree with. Do you think the end justified itself? And I think you kind of addressed that. When you think back over the course of the entire series, in your heart of hearts, do you feel like the note that they left the story on was justified and everything else that preceded it?
I do think I do think that the end was justified. I thought that the story basically fulfilled the arc points that it left along the season. So um, one of the things that we love about this show is that you can watch each episode is contained within itself, as in it's got its own start and end. You don't really have to know that much about the story to at least be entertained or to at least follow the story, but it does carry the arc over the whole season. So, in the earlier episode, we mentioned that they do adventures in one episode. It's like an adventure episode, but it also contributes to the bigger story. And so like the end, it like it tied together the bigger story that they were telling, and I don't know, it was like it was an inevitability that you were just like hoping they would find a way around, but it happened like it happened. Most likely, I mean, we haven't read the actual novels that it's based on, so that would be an interesting comparison. Um, but it might be in some way related to that. But it also like leaves on a hopeful note for season two, and so um, yeah, the end tied up the story. I'll say much better than other endings, season and series endings that I've seen.
I would probably more or less have to just piggyback that and agree with you. I don't really know if there's any more I could contribute constructively to that assessment. Um, I mean, you can still be disappointed, but yes, in keeping true to the theme and the different concepts and even just the character development and the plot development, yes, it did. The end did justify. It was just an ending that I just personally didn't want to see. But, that's the beauty in writing and storytelling is that, you know, yes, we were left with the bookmark that we were left, but who knows? In the world of Lovecraft country, everything that we witness could totally end up not being what happens. So I'm also hopeful in that as well.
And if we like look at every other show there's been, like a show finds any reason to do whatever they want to do, honestly.
Right. Yes.
So, in this
Yes.
show, it has magic in it too. So it's all that much easier.
Right. So this will bring us to a decision we've decided to make in terms of this podcast. We won't do back-to-back episodes, obviously, because there are a litany of topics we want to cover. But we talked about this the other day, and we've decided to do a Lovecraft rewatch, where we will rewatch the entire series, and we will do one episode at a time, just breaking down the content of the episode, inferences, things that we were able to pick up on after going through watching it initially that maybe will help anybody new to it understand it better, and hopefully just delve into some deeper conversation around each episode up to the season finale.
And now that the season is over, we're gonna talk about details.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's gonna be fun. We've been trying to talk carefully and not spoil it, and hopefully we've piqued somebody's interest as we now do this rewatch. And we hope that you'll stick around with us and comment along as we rewatch it and as we talk about the things that we have seen once before and now we're seeing it again, and we're gonna just have fun with it and pick up new things and everything. So I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, Um, obviously, there are details that we both would have liked to go deeper into, but just for the consideration of our listeners, we do understand that some people might need a little time to kind of catch up and get into it. But honestly, I think a rewatch will give us some insight into some things that maybe we missed the first time around, or it might just allow us to just be able to really delve, because the thing I really appreciate about this show is historical inferences and or references, and I think a little homework on our part, but I'm hoping that as we go through each episode we can find some of the details and the facts and share with you some of these historical facts that have taken place, the impact they had on the black community and the world, and why it's important to black people that it's on the big screen, and just why it's important that it needs to be taught and it needs to be discussed, because these are things that either we grew up with or we just recently learned. Nonetheless, there are significant African American points in history that are part of the American fabric, and that we just need to talk about.
Absolutely. So much history. As you said, we've learned this year. So much history and knowledge has been like brought to life through other podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
1619, it was a podcast and the New York Times article.
Right.
And things on TV, like Samuel L. Jackson, he did like a deep dive into African history through the slave trade. And Netflix, there's just so much. It's because of black storytellers and historians and people who want to bring these stories to life that have been hidden for so long, that so many of us are just learning about ourselves in many cases on screen, and it's eye opening. It's really eye opening, and it's also good because now we can teach our children and our future generations.
Absolutely. Well, that kind of brings us to the end of this episode. My final thought, and then Daryl will share his. Lovecraft Country gave me something that maybe 2020 was waiting to give me. And I'll say this, don't get me wrong, 2020, I am blessed, I am alive, I am healthy, I am here, but it has been an exercise in mental dexterity to not succumb to all of the doom and gloom. And Lovecraft Country came along, and it was this burst of light where I could focus on an interesting story where there were black lead characters, black storytelling, black history, beautiful shades and colors and sounds and music, and I'm excited about the future even more so, of black television and black movie making, because we are finally having a voice. We are telling our own stories with our own writers and directors, and that just makes me feel hopeful. I'm hopeful about the future. I'm hopeful about black stories, and I just feel good. Thank you, Lovecraft Country, for giving me this toward the end of 2020.
Yeah, and I'll say this too, like Lovecraft Country, watching it is the sort of thing that sort of helped spark my own creativity or get me back writing and help me to start having ideas. It's the kind of thing that just like expands your mind. It's the kind of thing that really makes you, think and wonder, not just the things that you are watching and not because they've packed so much into every episode, but just even comprehending what you're seeing. And that just kind of forces you to look back at everything. And so, like, I remember I was watching one episode and it just inspired me to start writing again. Um, just like, and I hadn't written probably in a couple of months. And sometimes you get inspiration like that. And there have been other episodes that just sort of inspired me to, deep dive on the internet and do some more learning. So anything that can actually like inspire good in terms of your reaction versus inspiring you to feel fear and hate and sadness and hopelessness, that's what we're all about here too with this podcast.
Right.
And that's why this show is like such a great show to come along because it coincides with our values and the things that we like to promote. Because the pandemic is bad enough, so
Right.
I mean that's what we're here to do. We're talking about the things from our own perspective, and we're also talking about how we're getting through it.
Right. Right.
And we're talking about you know the things like we already know that in the future we're going to listen to this and it's going to be interesting to just hear how we dealt with it because we know we're going to be we know we're going to get through it, but we're talking about how we're dealing with it and how we are all dealing with it. So this show encompasses that without even knowing it because obviously it was made before the pandemic. So
Right.
that was yeah, that's my feelings.
All right. Well, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Well, that brings this episode to a close. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. And I forgot to mention this on the last episode, but do us a favor. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram, Cutie Chat Podcast. Also, if you are new to us, you can listen to us on Apple Music, TuneIn, Stitcher. You can find us on Castbox and Spotify. So make sure you're following us. Make sure you're listening to our content. Always feel free to email us or give us feedback.
And in fact, if you can't find us wherever you get your podcasts, email us and let us know because we should be everywhere by now. We're definitely trying to get everywhere. So, yes.
Thank you guys so much. This is Mary.
And this is Daryl signing off.